welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for stress test. And in the crypto sphere, the two biggest drivers still seem to be fear and greed. So with those emotions running the show, there's a serious need for the industry to develop more accurate metrics. Unfortunately, we have with us a person who can help to understand those things from a new perspective. Of course, I'm talking about our regular guest, the Thai co-founder, Joshua Frank. Josh, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so to kick us off today, let's have a quick dive into some of the latest sentiment that we've seen rolling around crypto markets. We've had a bit of a wild time since the start of 2020, and we haven't had too much of a chance yet to speak to you. So can you give us a broad overview on some of the market trends that you've seen play out with certain coins?
Yeah, so one of the most interesting things that I guess we weren't, and I don't think a lot of people were expecting was, it kind of seems like, at least for some time so far this year, that alt season is kind of back. If we look at Bitcoin and we kind of zoom out here, and I think I got a chart, what we had seen was that the number of Twitter users on Bitcoin really spiked last summer when the price ran up to about 12 or 13 or $14,000. I can't remember exactly what it had hit. In about July or August, up to about 19,000 Twitter users a day talking about Bitcoin. But this year, even though we've seen quite a bit of a run, it doesn't seem to be reflected in the number of raw retail users discussing the coin. And something interesting that I like to do, which is also kind of a reflection of the number of Twitter users, is I've been going around the last few weeks and I've been asking people, hey, can you tell me 5 people that started trading crypto last year that weren't trading crypto the year before? And I haven't been able to find one person that knows 5 people. The most I've heard is 3. And I think that's a reflection of the market, right? Which is that even if we're seeing a bit more of a run up, it's not actually reflected in terms of the raw number of people that are actually discussing the asset, in particular from a retail point of view. But if we compare that to altcoins, and this has been reflected in price. These are just a couple examples we came up with, pretty easily. But if you look at Ethereum Classic and Bitcoin SV and Bitcoin Cash, they've actually seen massive increases in terms of the number of people talking about them to start the year. I mean, if we look at Bitcoin SV in particular, it's approaching its yearly high in terms of the number of people talking about the coin. I mean, it approached over 300, but it's close to about 250 a day. Likewise, Ethereum Classic is at the highest number of people talking about it since around February, and Bitcoin Cash is seeing this massive spike as well. So it's interesting to see this reflected in altcoins and not Bitcoin, because for the longest time throughout 2018 and 2019, it was really Bitcoin, which was seeing much less of a drop than altcoins. I think we did in our year-end review a comparison, and altcoins had dropped 80-90% in terms of tweet volumes over the last 2 years, whereas Bitcoin had only dropped around 60%. So it's interesting to see that trend reversing.
All right. I mean, could we put this down, particularly focusing on Bitcoin for a moment, could we put this down to a bit of a law of diminishing returns? I mean, yes, Bitcoin is back up, but obviously it's still less than half of its all-time high value. Are people just not as interested in these sort of price movements at the moment? They're still waiting until it's going to approach those all-time highs before anyone gets seriously interested again?
I wish I knew the answer to your question. I can't say that I do. I can't say that I know what is going to drive back retail interest. I will say, though, that I actually have had 2 people who are not actively trading Bitcoin approach me about the halvening. So that is quite interesting. And that did not happen at all last year. So even though we're not seeing this massive spike in tweet volume, I do have 2 just friends, right? Just friends from childhood or whatever, who just send me emails asking, what is this halvening? And what does that mean for Bitcoin prices? Should I buy now? What's going to happen? And I've said I don't know what's going to happen, but the spike in retail interest is only a good thing, even if it's just exploratory at this point. I think the closer and closer we get to the halvening, the more and more stories we'll see in mainstream media about it, particularly around is the halvening going to increase prices? I think we'll see the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal potentially even pick up on stories like that.
Certainly, potentially a rallying cry around midway through the year that could really be the shot in the arm needed to bring those new retail investors in, get that fresh blood in. But I guess we'll have to see as the halvening approaches. So in the meantime, let's look at something that's a little more real, a little more tangible. Now, you guys over there at the TIE, you haven't been sitting around waiting for the halvening to come in order to boost numbers and boost interest in the field. You've actually been doing some development, and you've got some new, communications technology out there, some new information tracking technology out there. I want you to go ahead and explain it to our viewers. Josh, take it away. What have you guys been working on?
Yes, so in the equity world, one of the most important things for discretionary asset managers is corporate actions, right? And a corporate action could be a stock split, a dividend, a stock buyback, or a significant, development like merger and acquisition, employment changes. Basically, when you're a traditional asset manager trading equities, you'll have a feed of market moving information, right? You know that Apple just announced this dividend, or that X, Y, and Z person just got fired from Microsoft. But that technology really doesn't exist in the crypto market, right? Right now, if you're trying to find and access information, information is siloed across these hundreds of disparate sources, right? In the case of the Plus token scam, for example, that was announced in China almost a month before anybody in the United States picked up on it. If we look at for example, token listings, those tend to happen on exchange blogs first, and then on Twitter, and there's no centralized repository of information on all of these, kind of significant market moving events. So we've actually been building for the last few years, very, very quietly, what is the first corporate actions and significant developments feed for the digital asset space. So we call it crypto SigDev. And basically what it does is we're looking at and we're crawling from hundreds and hundreds of different sources. So we're crawling everything from exchange blogs to token blogs. So we'll look at the Ethereum Foundation's blog, to mainstream media publications, to crypto publications, to even Chinese publications. And what we're doing is we're doing natural language processing in that source language. So for example, in Chinese, we'll do natural language processing, and we'll try to assess the relevancy of a headline to a specific asset, which is something that we've talked about in relation to sentiment as well, which is very important, right? So for example, making sure that if there's a headline on Dash, it's not about Amazon's Dash button, right? If there's a headline on, ETH, it's not picking up, Ethan Allen, it's only picking up Ethereum, right? So we, spent over a year just building topic models to, try to identify the relevancy of headlines to assets. And on top of that, we went ahead and actually built, these SigDevs, or significant developments for the crypto ecosystem. So we're able to effectively do it. And a SigDev, would be like an employment change, or a hard fork, or a token burn, or a 51% attack, or anything that's really significant and that moves the price. So what we're doing is we're intaking, we're doing about 75,000 crawls of the web a day. And then what we're doing is we're trying to, associate the relevancy of a headline to a specific asset, but then also to a specific market moving event. So, kind of how that manifests itself is in, these feeds of really market moving information. So for example, Coinbase listed Cosmos the other day. It took Coinbase 3 minutes to post about that Cosmos listing on their Twitter account and in Telegram, but 3 minutes prior to that, it was on their blog. So we actually went out and we crawled their blog, and our institutional customers actually knew about Cosmos's listing 3 minutes before anybody else did, and the price spiked by over 20%. So the idea really is to, enable users. I mean, this is an example of a dashboard, but really the ultimate goal is via an API or via a data feed to be able to track these market moving events and action on them. So you can see on our screen here, these are just, kind of a couple examples. So for example, this is news of illicit activity. So if you're a compliance staff and you want to just make sure hacks aren't happening, you can look at, hey, I want to see illicit activity related to specific custodians or specific exchanges. This isn't just coin related. You can see all news on custody, all significant development news, news on what's going on with exchanges, updates that are coming directly from exchanges. So these are, updates from Binance. We're pulling from 7 different Binance sources. So everything from Binance US's exchanges listings to Binance Fiat exchange listings to, Binance support forums, basically any piece of information that we can get to identify things that will move the market we're trying to pull. And so our institutional and enterprise customers can actually very, very easily customize feeds by going through, almost 100 different topics, from coins to custodians to exchanges, different significant developments, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sources that we're looking at, and we're letting these institutional customers also decide, hey, I only want to see headlines from more or less credible publications. But the really interesting thing here is not just the, hey, I can act on the market faster than anybody else. It's the case that we're going to make to traditional financial institutions that are crypto curious, that there's finally a way to track what's going on in the space. You're used to a corporate action feed, right? You're used to seeing, every single time, Tesla puts out their earnings statements and they announce dividends. But right now you've been trying to track the crypto sphere, and there's just no way for you to get this consolidated information. And that's really what we're doing here.
Right. I mean, it's a funny thing, Josh, for the longest time I've been saying in a preamble leading into our segment here together that the need for more accurate data metrics is critical in the crypto space. And honestly, it seems like this tool could be that exact linchpin that people are looking for, in particularly when you talk about those institutional players looking to come into the crypto digital asset space.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, we're seeing that. We're talking to them actively, and we're showing them this. And we're talking to a bunch of large traditional financial data companies that do not have any crypto data on their platforms. They don't have prices, they don't have on-chain data, they don't have sentiment, they don't have anything. But this is the first product that they get. And that makes sense to them, right? Which is the idea that even my customers now, right? If you're a large traditional financial data platform, are not really trading crypto, right? These large pensions are not really trading crypto. Large asset managers, maybe a little bit, but it's mostly the quant funds that are traditional that are trading crypto. But they're getting a lot of these data companies are getting a lot of pushback from their customers that they're crypto curious, and we think this is the first feed that actually enables these traditional institutions to really track what's going on in the market, right? Even from a custody point of view, from a regulatory point of view, you can say, I just want all feeds on, US regulatory news from mainstream media publications related to crypto or traditional finance publications. And also just enabling them to see what's going on out east, right? Whereas, we can take in Chinese headlines. We do natural language processing, so we can, in Chinese, identify whether something's relevant to Bitcoin. And then we could spit that out as an English headline for customers. So, one of the biggest challenges is because, crypto is a very global market, it's very difficult for, asset managers, in the West and then also in the East to track what's going on in the other place. And we hope to be able to kind of merge those two worlds together. So this platform is available in Chinese to customers out East, and it's available in English to customers in the West.
It certainly sounds like it has a myriad of applications out there. It'll be fascinating to see how this does roll out and how it develops. But in the meantime, Joshua Frank, I want to thank you so much for taking us through the sentiment and through this latest product. Happy to hear about it. And for those at home, keep watching at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and information. I'm westropp-evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.